Hello, Hockey World. Today is Friday, February 10th, 2017.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Well, there are only two games tonight in the NHL, a big Saturday ahead, a big weekend ahead as we get closer and closer to the NHL trade deadline. I'm going to go over the 11 games that were on the schedule last night and some interesting results, and I think results that will affect teams' approach to March the 1st, because I think a couple teams at least are have to come to the realization that they're probably out of it. Now these teams.
You're just the guy to tell them, aren't you?
Oh yeah, no, I know all. What can I say, Ross? But no,
you're the Grim Reaper.
Yeah, there you go. At Air Canada Center last night, the Maple Leafs and St. Louis Blues faced each other for the second time in a little over a week. And same result as it was in St. Louis last week. The Blues win 2-1, but this time in overtime on a goal by Vladimir Tarasenko. Russ, I watched this game intently, and wasn't exactly the most exciting game out there. Jake Allen and Frederick Anderson played pretty well, and Tarasenko, I don't think Anderson had a chance on the on that goal. Big injury possibly to Paul Stastny in the game. Now, looking at this right now, they're both these teams are in similar situations. They're like in the wild card, third place race in each of their divisions. St. Louis just went through the upheaval of firing Hitchcock and bringing up Mike Yeo. St. Louis first. I mean, we keep hearing about Shattenkirk. We keep hearing about the Shattenkirk move, and it sounds like everybody's of the opinion that it's going to happen.
Yeah, they keep saying it. I think if it happens, we're literally we're going to start the trade show, and still nothing will have happened, and it may be one of those that at what time is the deadline end? 3 o'clock?
3 p.m. Yeah.
4 o'clock we hear about it. It might be that last minute. I think that's the likelihood if it happens, because I don't think Armstrong wants to, raise the white flag on that. I think he's got a fan base that he has to answer to. They really do want to make the playoffs. They do have a pretty good team. I mean, they just, they got derailed there. They changed their coach. I mean, Jake Allen's at least back, and that's a positive. So we'll see.
Well, the funny thing is it's not just Shattenkirk. I mean, and with the injury to Stastny, and it doesn't sound like it's long-term, but he's doubtful for their next game. A guy like Laterra, who's not had a good year, he gets elevated. A guy like Patrick Berglund, who's a UFA and has started to be mentioned in rumors. These kind of guys, I mean, especially Berglund, since he is a rental. I mean, if they move Shattenkirk, they probably move Berglund as well. And then you're basically saying, okay, we're not making the playoffs here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, like I said, they're going to wait on that. These rumors will persist. I don't know how many of them really exist from within. I think this is a lot of people drawing conclusions that this is where they're at and this is what's going to happen. They still have a pretty great defense, and all it takes in this league is 5 wins in a row, and then all of a sudden that talk ends. And so I still think it's premature for them. I could be wrong, though.
Yeah, and they jumped past Nashville last night. Nashville, we'll talk about that game in a little bit. Going to the Leaf page, every indication out there. I mean, every once in a while you hear these sporadic, William Nylander for whatever, to Anaheim for Shea Theodore type of rumors. I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think the Leafs are going to make any trade in terms of being a buyer. They might if there's a long-term ramification to it. But I look at the Leafs right now, Russ, and they have 8 defensemen, and I think that there's a possibility out there that they maybe ship out the rentals like Roman Polak and Matt Hunwick for draft picks to create room for a guy like Marchenko, who they just picked up off of waivers, because I don't know if they're going to re-sign those guys at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think Marchenko probably does figure into their future plans. I think Babcock went out and made sure they got him, told the front office to get him.
But he did say today, Russ, he did say, well, there's no rush to get him into the lineup. So it's
because now he has him. I mean, it's the same thing as Frankie Corrado. they wanted Corrado so badly, and then they just didn't play him. And then now it's going to be the same thing with Marchenko. He wanted him, but now he just won't play him.
Yeah, but the difference here is that Babcock actually likes Marchenko. I mean, he didn't like the game of Corrado. I think Corrado ended up actually getting traded before March the 1st because, I think Lamoriello, I think he wants to do the kid a favor. Honestly, I think if it helps the organization and they get an asset for him, or even a low round draft pick, he's never going to play for Babcock. I think he's made that painfully clear. So I think they'll move him, but they could get a 3rd round pick for a Pollock. They could get a decent a draft pick.
There's no question you can get a 3rd rounder for him. I mean, he'd be a bottom pairing guy for somebody in the playoffs, or someone who steps in for someone who may get injured. I mean, that's if you have a team like, I don't know, just name the Rangers, the Sharks, teams like that who they think they can make a long run but are worried because they've had injuries. Well, then, he's a perfect guy to have waiting in the wings. Or, like let's say he were to go to the Rangers, that would get Clendening out of the lineup while these other injuries are happening, and that would be an upgrade. Yeah,
and I mean, the Rangers are purportedly looking for a right-hand shot defenseman. That's what Pollock is.
Yep.
Now we know that the Rangers have traded some draft picks. They don't have a lot of draft picks to play around with, but I think that if they think they're relatively close, that's a move that they'll make. Let's talk about that game for a second. Nashville and the Rangers. Now Nashville surprisingly, they played their backup. They played Saros instead of Rene. Now I don't know what their schedule was like and if they were playing back to back, so they would have to play the backup in one of those games. But it ended up costing them because the Rangers rally with 3 goals in the 3rd period to win 4-3. And in the race the way it is in that Metro division, I mean, every point counts. But you got that block of 4 right now. The Rangers right now are 4th out of the 4, but they're still relatively close that they could get back into 2nd or 3rd place in that division.
They could. They're going to have to be completely healthy, I think, to do it, because I think their defense has been really faltering for a while now. I mean, Lundqvist is not exactly Lundqvist. He's not horrible, but he's not Henrik Lundqvist of 4 years ago either. So there's always 1 or 2 goals now where you say, wow, he used to not let those up, but they go in. He did make 43 saves last night. That's a big deal. They were down 2-0. They scored 4 straight. This makes me worry more about Nashville than the Rangers because, to me, Nashville's sort of turned into like a fragile team. And it's, again, I'm not putting this on PK Subban. I'm not even putting it on Peter Laviolette. I'm putting it on the fact that they don't have enough offense. Now, in this game, they did score 3, but we're still looking for Nashville, for them to have offense. Like, this is a couple of years running where they have a pretty talented team. Pekka Rinne's aging, and they still don't have enough guys scoring.
Yeah, and they demoted Ribeiro last week, and I mean, I'm assuming that the problems with Ribeiro weren't on the ice but off the ice because that's always been the case with him. But he was there to provide secondary offense, and other than Johansson and Neal and a few others in Forsberg, yeah, it's the typical story with the Preds is the fact that they don't score enough goals, which is why I know that they're one of many teams that have been tied to Colorado about a trade for a guy like a Duchesne because he's under contract for a couple more years. Maybe they'd be able to fit him under their salary structure, and they need that secondary threat. They would need him to be that number 2 center behind Johansson.
To me, they've got to trade a defenseman, right? I mean, they've got so many. They're going to lose one to Las Vegas for sure. And why not trade one of them and try and get somebody who can really add some offense? Because if they don't, they're in danger of not making the playoffs, right? They're only like a point in. And at best, could they really get out of even the second round? I don't think so.
Well, in that division, yeah, it's going to be problematic. But the thing is, I mean, they could go 8 skaters and 1 goalie and protect the 4 defensemen. I mean,
no, but they have other guys. They do.
Yeah, but as for the Rangers, I mean, I'm just looking. Grabner with his 26th goal. I mean, it just boggles the mind, Russ. After watching that guy last year not be able to score, I think he scored on 1 breakaway last year.
Yeah,
and he's got 26 goals. They get 1 from Kreider, 2 from JT Miller. Now, I know that Larry Brooks wrote something a while back, and this was tied into Shattenkirk. And there's, again, not to keep referencing back to that, but the two teams that keep being mentioned often regarding Shattenkirk have been the Bruins and the Rangers. And I know that Larry Brooks said that, the speculation was that a forward like a JT Miller would be included in that deal. Now, to me, I can't see that it being wise to include a guy like Miller, who's almost got 20 goals right now and has been playing well the last couple of years, including him in that deal, unless they just think they have too many forwards and they can't pay all of them.
It is possible. I mean, paying all of them is going to be an issue. I mean, I'm really happy for Grabner, though. I really am. I mean, he's a good guy. I got to know him a little bit when he was on the Islanders, and he's a great locker room guy. And that's, even if you remember when they signed him, I said, hey, he's a good locker room guy. He'll definitely be good on the penalty kill. I don't know if he could score anymore. And so we've all been sort of awakened to the fact that he can still score. And he's probably comeback player of the year. I can't think of anybody better.
And they signed him to a 2-year deal. Now they have to protect him. So
yes. But I think now you want to protect him. Like
a guy who scored 26 goals and he's making like $1.2 million. Yeah, that's a get out of jail free card. That's incredible.
That is a get out of jail free card.
Okay,
yeah, I'm looking over, by the way, while we're talking Nashville's defensive system, and I got to tell you, even if you're going to get Yannick Weber, like, I don't know what his contract status is. He might.
I think he was a 1-year deal. I think he's making less than $1 million.
Okay.
He was just a late signing. As a sort of like how they were they added Matt Carl, they added Barrett Jackman. I think he was like one of those 1-year $700,000 contract type of deals.
Okay. Well, then maybe with the way things have gone lately, they do have just enough that nobody's going to take. I mean, that is possible.
Yeah.
But you know what? Still, they probably could survive by trading a defenseman, and they may have to do that. I mean, they have to get their offense from somewhere. They really do. Otherwise, it's going to be another tough go for them, and then there's going to be talk about Laviolette. On the Ranger end, they just have to get healthy. I think if they get healthy, they could get out of the first round with the right matchup. Mm-hmm. Second round and beyond, they have to make a move, or I can't pick them any further right now.
Other than the depth defenseman, do you think there's anything else?
No, I think that's really it. I think that's the key thing for them, because, I mean, look, we're all expecting Rick Nash to get better, but I think at some point it's nice to say he plays a complete game, and he does, and he has been sticking up for teammates, which is great. He's got 26 points in 42 games. He's got 11 assists. Like this, he's getting, what is he getting? 8.5, 7.5?
7, I think it's 7, 8, something like that.
7.5 or 8. And he's got 15 goals in 42 games. Now, he only had 15 all last year, which is good. But actually, last year with his 36 points, he's kind of on pace for that again. I mean, these are alarming numbers. Like, he had 4 points in the playoffs in 5 games. We'll see. But if he doesn't get hot, look, JT Miller's doing great. Kevin Hayes is doing real well. That combo has been terrific now. So that'll help carry him a little bit. And if Grabner stays hot, then maybe we won't have to talk about Rick Nash as much. But when they start playing some of these really talented teams, I worry about them second round and beyond.
What do you think the odds are that they approach Nash in the offseason and ask him to waive the no-move clause so they can expose him?
I think they'll do it. I just don't know what he'll do. But I think they'll do it. My sense is he won't waive it. I think he'll be like Carmelo Anthony and say, I want to stay there. Well, I mean, just to use another high-priced guy, right?
That's good. That's a good one. I was like,
and so I think he'll play the same card.
Yeah. Bruce Cassidy's first game as Boston Bruins coach. Zdeno Chara not in the lineup. I guess he had the flu or some sick.
Oh, he wasn't scratched, right?
No.
I'm kidding.
No, this is not Shane Gostisbehere. The Bruins win 6-3 over the San Jose Sharks, who blew a 4-1 lead in Buffalo, and it's typical. Their long Eastern road swing, and they're running into some difficulty. I don't think it's a reason to panic in San Jose.
No, but they've had some bad ones. I've witnessed the Sharks on some of these bad East Coast swings, and I got to tell you, it's tough to go into their locker room when that happens. They're a little surly at that point.
They're ornery, yeah. But see, here's the thing with the Bruins. Everybody, like, their top guys scored. Backes, Bergeron, Marchand. They put Backes on that line. Pasternak with 2, and then Tim Schaller had the by the way. I mean, yeah, if their big guys score, then there's no problems. The problem is there's only 4 or 5 big guys, and once if they don't score, then nobody else really is picking up the slack.
Yeah, I mean, that's a game that they definitely played for pride, right? Because the whole world's watching.
Yeah,
we know that their coach is gone, and so now they have to put their best foot forward. Not that they weren't before, but this gives you an extra jolt. And so with the extra jolt, they had a good game out of it. We're going to see, even just with this little 3-game set, because then we won't see a game for them for a little while. If they win all 3, then we'll say, all right, you know what? They're on the right track. Let's see what they do. Right now, they've knocked the Flyers out of their playoff spot. I'll tell you that. So that's something.
Well, I mean, the Shark. I mean, really, right now, you look at their defense. I would think that they might want to add one. Again, that bottom pairing guy like they did last year. I mean, they let Polak go at the in the offseason. They signed David Schlemko, who I think is a decent defenseman. I guess he could fit in the bottom pairing, but when you go into the playoffs, you always want that extra guy. So I think they're probably still going to be looking for a depth guy, but they don't have really a lot of room to add somebody big. There has been speculation about Shane Doan, and maybe they could make that work with Arizona providing a little bit of help. But short of that, I don't see them making any kind of big move.
No, I think it's going to be from within. I think they're going to test guys that they have in Providence, move them up and around, see what they've got. Cehlarik is in there now, or Chalarik. I always mispronounce his name, but he's a big winger.
For the Bruins we're talking about,
For the Bruins, yeah. Isn't that who you were talking about? Or
I'm talking about the Sharks.
Oh, now you're talking about the Sharks. I'm sorry. My bad.
That's okay.
But I think that's what the Bruins will do. The Sharks, it's going to be minor. It is going to be minor. I don't know how close they are to the cap. I imagine it's pretty close.
Yeah.
And so, like, any deal they make, it's going to have to be with some other team eating some salary, and then that means they're going to have to move some sort of decent draft pick to compensate for that.
And they don't have a lot of draft picks. Remember, they traded 2 second-round picks to get Nick Spaulding and Polak last year. They traded a 4th-round pick to get James Reimer. So they've already they don't have 2nd and 3rd-round picks the next 2 years.
This is why I said they added Timo Meier and they added Kevin LeBanc, and those might be their additions. And maybe by the end of the year, they'll be even bigger contributors.
Yeah. Game in Buffalo that was interesting as usual. The Sabres and Ducks were tied at 1 at the end of 2 periods. The Ducks score 4 goals in the third to win 5-2. Here's one of the teams I think, even though they won't probably admit that they're DOA, dead on arrival, I think the Sabres, now they'll keep trying, but right now, I just think it's a bridge too far to expect them to climb back into the race. And they have so many UFAs that they can move out. Guys like Gianta, who might be interesting for teams that are looking for a veteran ad, that I just don't see them keeping things the way they are right now. I think they're going to be sellers on March the 1st.
Yeah, I mean, the optimist says, hey, we're only 6 point out. And then the pessimist or the mics out there say, well, there's 6 teams that you have to climb over. And so I think they're out of it too based on that.
Not pessimist, realist.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
Yes. I live in the real world. Now, the Ducks, I mean, to me, the Ducks are the most interesting interesting story here because they're probably going to make the playoffs. Right now they have 68. They're 2 points behind the Sharks. I think that, they're going to be one of the top 3 in the Pacific. They have higher aspirations. Obviously, they have those big guys like Kessler and Perry and Getzlaf, and the clock is ticking on those guys. They've got a bevy of blue liners, and a lot of teams are contacting Bob Murray and saying, okay, I'd like to get Shea Theodore. I'd like to get Brandon Montour. Well, the Ducks are looking for forwards. Now, I know I just wrote this in the rumor buzz about Evander Kane. There's been some speculation about Evander Kane, some speculation about James Van Riemsdyk. I'm not sure whether that is what they're looking for, or whether if they're going to trade one of those young guys, are they looking for a comparably aged young forward, or are they looking for the guy like a Van Riemsdyk or a Kane that has a year left and that's their window?
It's a good question. I think it would be anybody. I don't think the age matters, but it has to be somebody really good, because I don't think Theodore is going anywhere. Like, I think there's just too much offensive upside with him that they can't afford to risk it. I think Montour, who I like a lot, doesn't show the same propensity for offense. So I think you could move Montour and be safer. And I think, but again, if you're going to trade a Montour, you've got to get something pretty good. I think at this point we're all realizing they're not trading Cam Fowler. He's just too important to their team.
Well, and that was going to be my next question, because do you see any scenario where they trade any of the top three? Because, I mean, the reason I would say that they would trade Fowler is if they know that they can't sign him, if they know that they can't get him locked up, because after July 1st, they can extend him even though he's got a year left in his contract. I mean, it's similar to what's going on with Van Riemsdyk in Toronto. I think, they might be willing to keep him, but if he wants 6 years, $6 million, then Toronto's probably not going to. They're going to trade him.
I think same situation as Shattenkirk, you would have said about him last year. With a year left, they're keeping him. They'll worry about it next year. They know they're going to lose somebody this year, and so you might as well get ahead of it and trade a guy like Montour and get an asset that could help you, because if all things broke right for them, they could certainly make it to the Stanley Cup. I mean, they have enough pieces. But you always need that little extra kick down the stretch, and we know that their offense, even though they have an offensive coach now, will eventually fade. I do want to mention something about their offense. It's like I just expect more, I guess, still out of Kessler and Getzlaf these days, and I just don't know if they're capable of giving that anymore. That's the part that worries me about them. Is right now, Kessler's got 43 points. That's good. It's better than last year for sure.
That's better than I expected out of him, because he's more of a two-way guy than a scorer.
This is the part. Ryan Getzlaf, how many goals do you think he has?
4. He doesn't have a lot.
He's got 8 goals.
Yeah, I mean, he had 1 goal through half the season last year, and then he went nuts in the second. I mean, there's some weird statistics out there. Joe Thornton scored his first goal with a goalie in the net this week.
Yeah.
So, Joe Thornton's making pretty good money. Ryan Getzlaf's making, $8 million. So you could say you're not getting your bang for your buck, but I think
how many goals do you think Rakel has, who I've always been high on, and now this year has seemed to really kick it in gear?
Who's this? Sorry?
Rickard Rakell.
Oh, well, he was out early. There was a contract thing. I'd say 10.
22.
Ooh. Shows you how much I watch the Ducks.
22 goals. Well, I'm just saying, it's just even Nick Ritchie's up to 11, which is good for him. But to have 8 out of Getzlaf hurts, and Perry's only got 39 points.
I hate to make it painful for your Leaf fans, but again, Rickard Rakell and John Gibson were the 2 Leaf draft picks. They're the picks that were selected with draft picks when they traded up to get Tyler Biggs, another great deal for the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, Rakell was always a good player. I think he's probably even now getting past what I thought he could do.
Now they might, if they want to sort of push it down the road and wait until the summer, but I still think one way or the other they're going to add, a forward who can help them score. They might be on the Patrick Sharp sweepstakes or somebody like that, because all it is creating cap room, and they probably wouldn't have to give up a ton, maybe a draft pick to get him, because I think more than anything, Dallas will be looking for cap relief and future assets for him. So that might be a fallback. I still think it's going to be Van Riemsdyk, or it's going to be somebody like that they go for. But it might be in the summer. It might be a summer deal.
That could be a summer deal, yeah.
Now, okay, you were at the game last night. Islanders and Flyers. Islanders win 3-1. Thomas Greiss with 34 saves for the victory. Only goal for Philadelphia was Wayne Simmons, who seems to score all the time. What were your observations of that game?
That was a game where the Flyers played well at the beginning, and there was good pace to the game, but the Islanders just scored key goals. And Radko Gudas was just in space when the second goal went in for the Islanders. Like, he wasn't even playing his side. And that was sort of the start of the downfall, but it was still only 2-1 at the time. And the Kasich Kazikas goal, and I like him. I've talked about him a lot. A great second effort turnaround goal, stunned Mason and stunned the Flyers. Like, really just completely took him out of the game. And that was a tough loss. Wayne Simmons was angry. Like, he wasn't yelling or anything in the locker room. He was giving one-word answers. Wayne Simmons never gives one-word answers. Like, he was just so mad about what had gone on, and definitely wants teammates to play better. But he said but he did score. But he wants everybody to play better. But, the thing that's not happening for that team is their best players aren't their best players. Voracek had a very awful, pretty much an awful game. Giroux didn't do much. Like, these guys now with the next 30 games, it's key for them. If they're not going to get that, they're not going to make it. I was impressed with the Islanders locker room. Clearly they're coming off a nice streak here, and so far so good with Doug Weight. I didn't have a chance to talk to him, but I spoke to Dennis Seidenberg for a long time, and he's been around winning locker rooms. Like, that's the one thing about Seidenberg. And I like to get that perspective from a veteran, and he likes what he sees. He's got a lot of faith in Greiss, fellow countryman too. So but he does have a lot of faith in him, and the team has a lot of faith in him. And that was a big deal to me. And Tavares was business as usual. This is, he got a goal. Nobody talked about it, but he had like 2 Mississippi on a power play. Like, you can't give John Tavares till like 2 Mississippi to shoot the puck, or he'll shoot it out. He probably could have shot out 2 targets in the All-Star game in the time that they gave him to shoot. That's how much it was. So this is a big win. Like, this was a damaging win to Philly, not only because it temporarily knocks them out of the playoffs, but damaging to their psyche. The Flyers used to own the Islanders. They no longer own the Islanders. The Islanders are hot. The Flyers aren't. And they're, the Islanders have games in hand. Like, this is a bad thing for Philly.
Yeah, they got 3 games in hand. They're only a point behind them. They're 8-1-2 under Doug Weight. And, Arthur Staple, in our Rumor Buzz, I selected one of the things he mentioned in a sort of a fan discussion on Newsday's website about, what the Islanders are doing. And they're not selling. They're buying.
No, they're buying. I told you they were buying.
And right. I mean, it's
just even. I got to tell you, even if they were 2 points out of the playoffs, 4 points out, they'd still be buying. From a public perception, the new owner wants to show his fan base that he wants to win. The only way he can do that is by buying. Now,
it's a question of what kind of buying are they going to do? Are they buying big? Are they doing Duchesne, Landeskog, Shattenkirk, something like that, something major, or are they tinkering and adding? And I think Staple was leaning more towards the tinkering and adding, like second, third line.
Well, I think that's the thinking, because that's what Garth is known for. But that doesn't mean the owner won't prod him for something bigger. Like, I don't know if it would be Ryan Smith big, and that didn't work out, if you remember, but it could be something in between. Now, if it were me, I might be looking at the Patrick Sharp angle, because if I want to show John Tavares that I'm serious about winning, Sharp knows Ladd.
Yeah.
Sharp and Tavares could be a nice combination. He's a winner. I mean, these are things that would definitely be important to John to re-sign his contract wherever they might play, right? We don't even know where they're going to play. But I think Sharp is a guy that you really could look at and say, he's definitely got a few seasons left. Speed's still there. He just has to score a little better. But if you play with John Tavares, that probably will wake up his scoring to some degree, and that could really be a good thing.
Yeah, Sharp might be a good fit. I mean, and they have what everybody is looking for. They have depth on defense. They have guys who
Ryan Pulock's not even with the team.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I watched the Islanders power play, and if Tavares didn't score that goal, it was pretty dysfunctional in that game. And they had Josh Bailey set up next to Nick Leddy, and I was thinking, boy, it would have been nicer if they had Ryan Pulock set up next to Nick Leddy, because his shot is like probably 30 miles an hour better than Josh Bailey, and then you have a real scoring threat. So all that said, they played Adam Pelech last night. Scott Mayfield was a scratch. Like, they're loaded with defensemen. And that's the thing that Dallas should look at if they really want to get better.
Next on Mike's Grim Reaper list is the
Detroit
Red Wings, because they lost to the Capitals 6-3 last night. And I'm just checking the box score just to make sure that this was right, because it's a little strange that a team would score 3 goals on 14 shots, but that's all that Braden Holtby faced was 14 shots.
Yikes.
And, I mean, we all know what Washington is. Washington's going to be one of the top contenders in the East. But Detroit, I mean, if there was any hint, they're tied with Buffalo right now. They're at 54 points. They have a number of guys like Vanek, like Brendan Smith, who they can move before the deadline and probably get good value for them. When we had Kevin on the show last week, I think he sort of hesitated about them doing the full rebuild track because they have the new building, but I don't see that. I don't see them. I don't see them being stopped from doing rental deals, from trading their UFAs. They have to realize that they're not in the race now, that they don't have the goaltending right now, and that they have to get something for these guys when they trade them. Otherwise, letting them go for nothing makes no sense.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, the one thing about the Capitals, and Detroit is clearly out of it. You could sound the horn on that. You could look at the Capitals and you say, they're scoring goals in buckets lately, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that Pittsburgh has still scored more goals than them? Pittsburgh has 190. They have 186. To me, that's an eye-opener because, again, we never talk about Pittsburgh, and quietly they still have the best offense in the league. Mm-hmm. And now the worst team for goals is Arizona. And to me, that's a red flag because I told you they were treading that line of trying to be rebuilding, but trying to bring in some veterans and play guys on 120 goals. Like that's dire.
Well, the thing that we'll talk about Arizona in a second, but the thing that killed them is Domi got hurt and Duclair was sent to the minors because he wasn't doing what Tippett wanted him to do. So, I mean, there was 2 of your offensive stars last year that –
You know what their differential is, Arizona?
It's got like minus 45 or something like that?
Yeah, minus 46.
Yeah, that's pretty terrible. Now, the Capitals, they lose Burakovsky to an injury, 4 to 6 weeks. He'll be back way ahead of the playoffs. But this is a thing where, does McClellan, their GM – that he doesn't have a lot of room to work with, but he did it last year. He moved out Brooks Lake. He brought in Daniel Winnick as a third, fourth line guy. Do they not tinker, but do they add something, add a piece, or are they just content with what they have right now?
It's a good question. I don't have a great handle on it. I don't. I mean, what do you think?
I think there's, if they can create the room. I mean, the only way they did it last year was they gave up a second-round pick. They gave up Connor Carrick to get the Leafs to take Brooks Lake's $4.5 million salary and got Winnick back, not as a consolation prize, but because Winnick is a good two-way guy. If there's an opportunity out there to find an inexpensive bottom six guy who can,
where's he going to play?
Well, I mean,
there's not a lot of ice time available.
That's why it would probably have to be a veteran, a guy who might be their 13th forward, but somebody who, guys get hurt in the playoffs. So if somebody does get hurt, like Burakovsky just got hurt, they need to be able to step in. So I think.
Is Verana even playing?
I think I saw his name on
that's the thing. He could be the next guy in. He's only played 12 games. I don't think he is playing right now. So.
But he's young, and that's the thing. It's like we're talking about a team that's hoping to contend for a Stanley Cup. I mean, if a guy like Vern Fiddler got traded to New Jersey, that would have been somebody like what I'm thinking of for the Caps, because he actually played for Barry Trotz in Nashville, so that he would be aware of a guy like that. So I mean, maybe something like
tough.
that.
I mean, I'm looking at their lines. I mean, they really, assuming Burakovsky comes back, like you're really going to get a guy that you're literally going to scratch him for Tom Wilson maybe a game or two. Like that's it. That's what it's going to boil down to. What are you going to really give up asset-wise for that?
I don't think they'll see. The thing is, I don't think they'll have to give up a ton. I mean, say for example, it's Dallas. Say for example, it's a Lori Korpikoski or a Yuri Hoodler, somebody like that. You're probably not giving up any more than a third or a fourth round pick. So I mean, it's a depth move. I mean, maybe they won't do anything at all. Maybe they're content with what they have in their.
I can tell you, Ross Mahoney. When's the last time you've seen him trade anything like a second or a third round pick? It's not very often.
Last year,
I know. And they tried it and it didn't work.
Well, no, I mean it didn't work because they got a dead salary off of their books.
Yeah, that's true too.
I mean, Brooks Laich has not lit the AHL on fire this year. So
right.
Okay, Vancouver Canucks win a 3-0 shutout over the Columbus Blue Jackets. Tortorella after the game apparently came out and said that our team is dog tired, so he made an excuse for them, not showing.
Dog tired, is that the actual word he used?
No. And of course,
other word. Okay.
I used that because yes, you caught me, Russ. But I mean, Vancouver has 54 points. I'm not ready to say DOA because I know their idiot ownership will not do what they need to do, which is strip it down. But the question is, they have a couple players. Like, will they come to the realization, say 2 or 3 days before the deadline, when they're 7-8 points out, that they need to trade Alex Burrows, need to trade Brian Miller, get something for them instead of keeping them and making a futile run at the end, for March and April.
Here's the thing about Miller. What does he have? 1 more year left?
No, he's a free agent.
He's a free agent. Okay. I guess it'll be up to him if he feels like going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, he wants to be on the West Coast, so that limits what Jim Benning can do. And so, like, he's not going to probably go to an East Coast team.
Well, we talked about Dallas yesterday.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I think it was, I'm not sure if it was Mike Heike, but I read something about what the buyout on either Lettinen or on Niemi would be this summer. And the thing is, if they have 1 year left, so the buyout would be spread over 2 years. And it would be in the neighborhood of 1.5 to 1.8 million, depending on which one they buy out. Now, the thing is, they could turn around and sign Miller for probably, say, $4.5 million on a 2-year deal, and he'd be basically paying the same thing you were paying the Lettinen even after you bought them out. So, but I don't know if they want to keep spending $10 million on goaltending, even though I think Miller would be an upgrade.
Yeah, he would be an upgrade, but $10 million, boy, I don't know.
They've been spending $10 million on goaltending the last 3 seasons, and their problem is their goaltending. So it's
how much does Tony Romo cost? He probably costs $10 million or more too. So
no, but he'll be on the Jets next year. Come on, you know that.
I know that, but what I'm getting at is
the Jets and the Bills are going to be bidding against each other for Tony Romo.
What I'm getting at is Dallas has spent as much in quarterbacks, and so same thing with the stars and goalies. It just seems like that's the thing in Dallas. So, I guess that's what they're going to have to do. It does seem like a good fit, though. I know we said it yesterday. I'll say it again. I do think it's a good fit, but it'll be up to Ryan Miller. Like, I think it's ultimately going to be up to him. He might just ride it out, too. Like, and if he does, he does. Like, there's nothing you can do with that.
But you can see the puppet strings being pulled on Jim Benning right now, because I think if it was up to him, they would be sellers. But I maybe, if they're 8-10 points out, maybe he goes to ownership and ownership gives him the thumbs up to be able.
Well, that's what I think. I think, to be fair, I think there will be a point where ownership may do that in the next couple of weeks if they don't get hot.
Right. If you needed one play to encapsulate the season for a particular team, last night, the Dallas game against the Ottawa Senators, where Yuri Hoodler, with the goalie pulled on a delayed penalty at about just around the red line, does the thing that every team does on a man advantage and does the drop pass. and it goes right through Klingberg and his defensive partner and into the goal. And that was the difference in the game. They lost 3-2 to the Senators.
You could sound the horn. It's done.
DOA number 3, Dallas Stars, rest in peace.
Yeah, they're done. I mean, there's nothing that's going to save them. Now we'll just see when the season rides out if Lindy Ruff will still have a job.
Yeah, but the thing is, we've been talking about it for weeks that right now there's only 2 teams that are definite sellers, and we knew that it was going to grow. But here is a team that really will affect the trade market before March the 1st, because here you go. Patrick Sharp, Yuri Hudler, Patrick Eves, who's got 19 goals, Lori Korpikoski, and Johnny Oduya, who's injured right now. So you've got 5 free agents. And if they become sellers, I mean, that's...
Yeah, but they're not all going to go.
Not all, but I think if Nil is... I think Nil will probably try to move as many as he can.
Here's the other thing to keep in mind, too. If they do decide to fire Lindy Ruff, they could literally, the day after, talk to Valerian Shushkin and bring him back. Because he clearly would come back.
Now, I don't. Do you remember whether it was a 1 or a 2 year deal?
It doesn't matter. It's probably got an out. Like, I'm sure, like, he literally, we know why he went there. Yes. He went there because he didn't get along with the coach. If you noticed in Florida when things were right for Mistra, did he go back to Winnipeg? Sorry, when things were right for him, Mistra went back to Winnipeg.
Right.
So
that worked out because he ended up waiving him and he went to Arizona.
Right, but I'm just saying. But he came back to the league.
You're right. And
I could see Dallas doing the same thing.
Pittsburgh wins 4-1 over the Colorado Avalanche. I know that Eck wrote today about Iginla and teams other than – because we've heard a few teams regarding Iginla. Again, what I worry about with Iginla is him at his advanced age accepting being a third-line guy on a team.
He'll do it. You got to remember, he is a guy with no ego. He is probably, for the caliber of player he is, maybe the guy with the smallest ego I've ever seen in sports. Like, he is such a humble guy. He will do anything to win. He wants to win. And I think if you put him in a winning situation, he'll just, basically the coach will say, Jerome, will you do this? And he'll do it, regardless of the role.
Now, Iginla has indicated he will waive his no-move clause to go to a team. Now, I assume that it's going to be a team that he has the best chance to win a Stanley Cup with. And Eck is reporting that a team like the Ottawa Senators are expressing serious interest in Iginla. I don't think the Ottawa Senators are a realistic Stanley Cup contender.
I don't think he would go to Ottawa. That's just my gut feeling.
Yeah, and the other teams that he listed were Minnesota, Chicago, Montreal. I think
Minnesota he would. Montreal, he would. Chicago, he would.
Yeah. So, I actually think, and I don't know if they would be interested in bringing him back. I think he would go.
I don't think so. It just didn't work great for him there.
You don't think you'd go to Pittsburgh?
No. I mean, I don't remember him doing well for Pittsburgh. That's the problem.
He didn't, and he was playing with Crosby.
Right. So. No, I don't think he'd go back.
The Avalanche, we've talked about it. The one interesting thing that we saw that was reported on social media last night was Adrian Dater reporting that there were 2 Maple Leaf scouts at the Avalanche game against the Penguins. Now, the reason that was curious was because the Leafs have already played at the Avalanche twice, so there's no reason for them to scout the Avalanche unless...
Well, who were they playing, and who was the next?
Pittsburgh. They were playing Pittsburgh. And they played Pittsburgh, but not until, I think they played Pittsburgh the last weekend of the season.
Okay, but... I mean, it probably isn't for that reason. It probably is for the trade reason, but
you can't draw conclusions. I mean, there were 13 scouts at the Leaf game against the Blues.
The Flyers had a bevy yesterday.
Yes. Kings win 6-3 over the Florida Panthers. Interesting note here: James Reimer gets pulled after allowing 3 goals. Luongo gets brought in. He gives up 3 goals in rapid succession. They bring Reimer back into the game. Florida was on more of a positive track, especially with Barkov and Huberdeau coming back. Now, this game, I mean, LA is, they're not exactly on a run, but LA is a good team.
But LA's, I saw it against the Flyers. I spoke to Drew Doughty after that game, and they played the Flyers exactly the way they want to play. They want to play an ugly game. They want to basically erase the other team's offense. They want to be physical. They want to, make you – and the Flyers said this too. The Flyers were saying they wanted you to go and make that extra pass, and then LA wants to, intercept or knock away that pass. So they're not giving up a great look every time down the ice. It's very rare to get good looks against them. So they're setting themselves up really well for when Quick comes back. And they're going to be a dangerous team. I think they're more dangerous than Chicago. I'll be honest.
Well, they're stealth. I mean, nobody's expecting anything.
Correct.
I mean, and Jeff Carter's got 29 goals.
Yeah, he's on fire. He's fantastic. Although in Philly, he didn't want to interview, but that's not a shock. We didn't see him after the game. But no, he's having a great season. He really is.
Now, the last game is I didn't see much of this, but I read and saw the highlights this morning.
Montreal, it's good that you read, Mike.
Yeah, thank you. Montreal Canadiens were up 2-0 on Arizona. Arizona comes back, scores 3 on Carey Price, who made only 21 saves in the game. Montreal comes back and scores 2 in the third period and wins in overtime. This is against a team that, not that Arizona is not mailing it in. Obviously, they're still trying, but this is a team that Montreal should roll over and that Carey Price shouldn't have any problems against, but they did. And it just brings up in a lot, I know that on Hockey Central today, and it's been something that's been echoed on this show and on other shows the last month. This is the time for Marc Bergevin to make his move because the window is not closing, but there's maybe a 2-year window here.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, and I think that they're going to make some sort of impact move. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just Martin Hansel, and that's not really a big move, but I think they need to add at least 1 and maybe 2 forwards before the deadline. What do you think?
Well, first thing they could do is maybe they could trade Yupi. I think Yupi has a lot of trade value. He does. Name me a mascot that's been around longer than Yupi.
Can they trade him for Mr. Met?
No. Yupi for Mr. Met would never happen. Mr. Met is beloved. He has a lifetime contract.
But wasn't Mrs. Met cheating on Mr. Met with Yupi?
Something happened. There was definitely an issue there, and she reappeared a couple of years ago, and now she's back. She's younger, so she could be the second Mrs. Met. That's never been really outlined, but Mr. Met is. You can't touch him. But Yupi,
she had some work done.
Yupi's been traded before, right, from the Expos to the Canadiens. So, no, but in seriousness, I found a stat that's really alarming for Montreal. And I watched some Montreal games, but I guess not enough yet. They have allowed 196 power plays against, the most in the East. They've allowed also the most power play goals against, 41. Now, you would say, well, that goes hand in hand, but not necessarily because Washington has allowed 192 power plays against, but only 30 goals. Now, you could say, well, Holtby's better than Price, but it's more than that. It's about the defense that they're playing for their penalty kill. And so, to me, this is a big problem for the Canadiens because in the playoffs, special teams are huge. And the penalty kill is massive. And their penalty kill is 79%. They're one of the lowest in the East as far as playoff teams. Considering they have 70 points, you have to give that to Carey Price and say he has stolen them games because they're not as good as their record at the moment. They're really not. They've got some alarming stats. They do.
Which is always the story. Again, they're depending too much on Carey Price to stand on his head and be, the super all-star that he is, and I think it's inherently unfair. Now, I'm not surprised at that statistic. I can't say statistic today, is because you got guys like Alexei Emelin and Brendan Gallagher who are just idiots. They take stupid penalties.
They do.
They run players. They're cheap. Especially Emelin is a complete cheap shot artist. And it's not surprising that they get, they have so many penalties called against them.
They need Martin Hansel because I believe they need the size as well as, the play up the middle and a little bit of scoring there because Hansel has a good scoring touch too. or even a Sharp could be a help for them, because if you put like Sharp with Galchenyuk, you might have something there. I think Sharp is a possible fit there too. They have to do something because, and Sharp is a guy that doesn't take bad penalties. That's the one thing about him, is he's very responsible.
Even though he's he's not an antagonist, but he's
but he doesn't take dumb penalties. They had too many guys that take dumb ones. Even Hansel on occasion will get goaded into some stuff too.
Well, I mean, Sharp and the Canadiens makes a lot of sense because of Bergevin's connection to the Blackhawks. I mean, he was there for years, and Sharp was there, so he knows what he would be getting. I don't know about in terms of the salary cap ramifications. I mean, all I keep hearing in terms of reading stuff about the Canadiens is that any deal of that ilk, like for Hansel, a guy like Michael McCarron would be somebody that would have.
Yeah, and I think at this point they'd be willing to do that. They've given McCarron a go a few different times, and it hasn't worked out. I think McCarron needs to go to a team where they're not so worried about the record. He can get a lot of ice time, and then see what you can get out of him. Put him on the fourth line. He's good on faceoffs. We don't know how many goals he'll score. I think the speed has gotten better, and the hands are still pretty good. So you got to give him ice time, and he just can't get the ice time in Montreal. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Now, if they go big, if they try to go for Duchesne, if they try to get somebody like that, then I think we're talking, and especially with Colorado,
Nathan Below would probably be in that deal then.
Either that, or you know what? I think it'd probably be Bulio and one of their prospect, either Sherback or a Juleson, or they're not going to trade Sergachev, but it's probably going to.
It's funny. Sergachev is definitely out because he's going to be in the lineup next year. Yeah. I would be shocked if he's not. Juleson, he's had a little bit of injury problems, and so even though he's very good, if they had to lose somebody, that might be someone they'd be willing to lose, and he definitely has value.
Yeah, you're not going to get an impact guy for Daniel Carr or Sven Adrigetto or one of those guys. It's going to have to be a prospect that's a pretty good one to get an impact player.
I will tell you this. We always sort of give Michel Therrien a hard time, but look at the career Paul Byron is having there. Like, this is a guy who is literally kicking around.
Well, I mean, Bergevin has had not only Paul Byron, but Torrey Mitchell and Brian Flynn. And he's been really good at getting these guys who are bottom six guys who are role players who spent some, like a guy like Flynn spent a lot of time in the AHL. Torrey Mitchell was at San Jose and then hopped to Buffalo, and they got him in a trade. I mean, he recognizes, these guys who can be role players and can be effective.
Here's the thing about Byron. Byron's got 14 goals. He's got 29 points. He's already exceeded his career high, and we still have games to go.
Yeah. But I think the thing is that they need more than just Pacioretty and Radulov to be able to advance in the playoffs. I mean, right now the Atlantic Division is the weakest of the two divisions, and they probably are going to finish in first place unless they collapse. But that means they play probably one of those teams fourth or fifth in the Metro. So they could play the Rangers, who potentially could have more points than them as a fourth place team than Montreal has as a first place team.
How many Chris Kreider jokes would there be before that series starts? The interesting thing about the Rangers is their differential is plus 42, but I'm going to tell you that I would like to see what their differential is like just lately. I think a lot of that was based on the early going when Grabner was red hot and they were scoring a lot of goals. I think that's evened out a little bit more lately. I got to tell you, that series would go 7. And if Montreal has home ice, like I think they will, Rangers don't historically play great there, especially Lundqvist. I could see them taking that series.
Yeah. Well,
it'll have to break right. I'm not predicting that yet.
No. I mean,
no, because people will tweet me and say, "Oh, what do you mean?" I'm just saying it's a possibility.
The other guy who's on the show would take offense at that. Like Montreal.
What other guy? What are you talking about?
That's right. I forgot. What's his name? Thanks, Russ. Good show. We'll be back on Monday with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Lagello. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.